Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I would just like to start by welcoming everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Kristen Brubaker, and I'm the project manager of Civic Spark here at the Local Government Commission. During today's webinar, I'll be providing some basic information about Civic Spark, what we do, how we do it, and then talking really about what it means to be a Civic Spark member, and finishing by discussing member recruitment for our upcoming 2015-16 service year. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to type them in your question box. You are all muted, so you won't be able to speak them, but go ahead and type anything that comes up. I'll probably be answering some questions as I go, and then we'll have time at the end to answer any remaining questions. This webinar is really an opportunity for you to get my attention and for us to share a little bit about our program and answer all of your questions. So really excited to hear about any of the questions that you do have. Diving in, to start off, what is Civic Spark? I'm guessing you each have at least a general idea of our program, or else you wouldn't be here today. But ultimately, we are an AmeriCorps program dedicated to building capacity for local governments to address climate change. We're what you call a governor's initiative program, which means that the governor identified climate change, and specifically our program, as a high need priority. It also means that we at LGC, who manage Civic Spark, work very closely with California's Governor's Office of Planning and Research on the implementation of our program. As a member, this would benefit you, as OPR can provide resources, access to people, training, and information that you might not otherwise have. It also is just a sign of the importance that Governor Brown and California views climate change and the response necessary, and really linking up AmeriCorps, a national program, with this need is something that they really are putting a lot of effort and a lot of time into. So we're excited to be identified as one of these Governor's Initiative programs. I mentioned, though, that Civic Spark is also an AmeriCorps program. So just giving a little bit of background information about AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps is a nationwide service program where volunteers dedicate a specific amount of time to addressing a specific community need. For us, that time period is about 11 months, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. And the issue is obviously climate change. Although Civic Spark is a new program, the 2014-15 service year is our first service year. AmeriCorps has been around since 1994. So I'm sure many of you have heard about other AmeriCorps programs and might even be looking at other AmeriCorps programs as potential opportunities for you. VISTA is an AmeriCorps program, Public Allies, Teach for America, all of these great organizations that have been out there for years and years. Civic Spark is a new one, but we are connected to that larger movement around service and about making a local impact in service as a solution. There are about a little bit over, I would say, 80,000 AmeriCorps members who serve annually across the nation. So as a Civic Spark member, you would be part of not only something in California, but something nationwide. That's a brief overview of what Civic Spark is, but what do we really do? Well, we have 48 AmeriCorps members each year, and we place these into climate readiness teams, is what we call them. And they're teams of 3 to 8 AmeriCorps members who serve in 9 regional hubs throughout California. In each of the regions, members are supported by their supervisor, by regional partners who are local agencies immersed in the community and already working to address climate change. The members impact nearly 100 local governments by building capacity for them to address climate change over the year. And this takes place all throughout California, but especially around those 9 regional hubs. In the map that is on this slide, you'll see some of the locations of the communities that we've helped to support this year. Next year, some will be the same and some will be different. Teams might be larger in some regions. Right now, our largest team is probably the Bay Area and our LA team, which are both about 8 members. Next year, we might see that there's fewer members in any of those given areas, and maybe our North Coast team would be up to 6 members instead of the 3 we currently have. Ultimately, we've really set up this program to be responsive to be responsive to community need, having the flexibility to shift our response and our action each year to really get to those areas that need help the most and that where we can make the biggest impact. I mentioned earlier that we do have the regional partners. We also have the regional supervisors who are sort of our team coordinators in each of the areas. We have the 96 local governments, nearly 100 local governments that we support each year, 48 AmeriCorps members, and then we're also working with some other key partners, including California Volunteers, CNCS, which is the Corporation for National Community and Service, and Encore.org. We definitely work with a lot of stakeholders over the year, as you can see, and so you do have the opportunity as a member to build your own professional network and really sort of see how a lot of different agencies work. Our program is based on a few core ideas. First, the state of California has set up ambitious climate change goals. And in those goals, they recognize local governments as critical to meeting these needs. And second, local governments don't always have the resources or the expertise to take action on their own. They need help, and Civic Spark exists to offer that assistance. Civic Spark works by recruiting the 48 AmeriCorps members who will then work with these local governments who need help to implement targeted research, planning, or implementation projects. Members also spend time during the year on working on supporting volunteer engagement. So Civic Spark really is a unique platform for change. We connect members, possibly any of you listening in right now, who have the experience and they want more experience. And maybe you've gone to college or are interested in climate change. You're ready to take that next step and able to help. So we connect you with those local governments who need the help and don't know how to get it otherwise. And ultimately, this builds capacity to make lasting impact in California. As a whole, Civic Spark has 3 goals we work to achieve annually, and I'm just going to briefly touch on each of them. The first is our service projects, and our service projects are really the projects I've been talking about thus far. It is building the capacity for local governments, it's addressing climate change in a lot of different ways. Our members complete these over the year, and they spend the bulk of their time working on these service projects. And really, that's a project that might be research, it might be planning, or it might be the actual implementation of a climate change response activity. Although our team works on a variety of projects, and a few slides down the line, I'll actually have an example or two of some of the projects that we've worked on this year, so you can see some of the examples. They all of our projects do follow the same 4-step process. And this process includes a gap assessment, which is just scoping, getting a better understanding of what that project looks like, implementing the project as it's decided to do, building volunteer engagement, and then also transitioning out, really sort of creating a list of next steps that you can leave with that local government so action can continue after you leave the program. In addition to the service projects, we also work with volunteer recruitment and support. Members work over the service year to build volunteer services and to recruit and support volunteers to ensure capacity is created and can continue. Ultimately, Civic Spark is a capacity building program, so we don't want to create a situation where you might help a local government agency for 11 months, hand over a report, leave, and then nothing happens afterwards. We really want to create a situation where the work and the momentum can continue after the Civic Spark involvement is done. And how we see we can best do that is working with volunteers, building volunteer services, recruiting those volunteers, working with them so that they are ready to continue the work that you've started immediately as you leave. And so that also has to do with the transitioning that I mentioned earlier with the service projects, really making sure that there is an action plan for continuing work after you leave. And then the last piece that I'll touch on that's a Civic Spark goal is member development. And it's really our goal that each member is able to grow professionally during the service year. Civic Spark provides regular statewide trainings, and regional teams conduct local relevant trainings to supplement the statewide trainings. Additionally, members have the opportunity at the start of the year to define specific professional goals that they'll work on during the year. It's really these three goals that we focus on during the year. And even though you might focus more on the service projects than the other pieces, it all creates an opportunity for all members to gain a lot of professional experience, some hands-on service activity, and really take that next step to becoming a leader within the sustainability field. Looking at those project examples I mentioned earlier, members over the year might only work on a single project, or they might work with multiple local governments on multiple projects. In all cases, though, members have the opportunity to receive specific training to prepare them for whatever project work they will be doing, and they also have the opportunity to gain project management experience. Each year, our project list will be different depending on the needs of the communities, but some of the examples of projects this year that I wanted to call out include climate resiliency projects, GHG emission reduction that includes energy efficiency as well as other projects, alternative transportation, and that's really looking at anything from alternative fuels to working with commuting, looking at even some different alternative commuting or mass transportation options, and urban greening. These are just a few of the examples that we are doing this year, but one that I'd like to just call out quickly is the Climate Resiliency Project, as I think it's one that makes us a unique project, or excuse me, a unique program. There's a lot going on around mitigation, but there's still, you know, a lot of areas are still beginning to start thinking about adaptation, and having the opportunity to work on climate resiliency projects and vulnerability assessments and working with resiliency and adaptation pieces is something that I think we are a program that is leading the charge in. So very excited about those projects and hoping that next year we'll be able to continue them. I just wanted to also point out quickly on this slide, and throughout this presentation, I have a few quotes that are just built in, and just reading one from one of our members this year who's serving in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's exciting to learn outside of the classroom environment. I've learned so much that I would not have had the opportunity to develop without Civic Spark. I think that that's just a great quote as to all of the experience that you get with Civic Spark and how you can get that hands-on experience that maybe you've heard about in the classroom but haven't actually been able to take that next step. So that was a quick overview of our program, but really what you're probably most interested in is what it actually means to be a Civic Spark member. And ultimately, it's an opportunity to gain professional and relevant experience, build a strong network, and become a leader within sustainability. But how do we do that? As I mentioned earlier, members are placed on teams of 3 to 8 members within our 9 regions. The members are all assigned to a service project, one of those climate change response projects, and they'll spend most of their time working on that specific project. Again, it might be one project over the entire service year. It might be multiple projects that you'll work on throughout the service year. In some cases, members within the region might all work on the same project as a team. In some cases, multiple teams might exist within the region. And other projects will be completely individual. And in those cases, the member might even work in a specific office location away from the rest of the group. In all of these cases, though, trainings, team activities, service days, all really provide a team environment for all members, regardless of if they're working with a team of 5 other members or if they're working independent on a project. I did, just to clarify this a little bit, I did want to give you a few examples of team projects versus the individual projects. And using a single region from this year, looking at our San Gabriel Valley and Inland Empire region, we have a few different projects taking place in that region this year and really are working with quite a few beneficiaries. We have about 20, 21 or so local governments that our 5-member team is actually working on building capacity for. So really seeing big impact within the region. But ultimately, we sort of have those 2 different styles of projects. We do have one project which is a team of 4 members, and those 4 members are working on implementing a residential energy efficiency program. The energy efficiency program, they've really started from the very beginning. They've built all of the marketing materials, they've built all of the systems, and really took it from the start into the implementation zone. At this point of time, they've actually been trained up and have implemented the project to the point that they are going into the community, doing outreach, and actually conducting residential energy audits to then provide educational resources and next steps for all of the homeowners to actually make energy efficiency changes within their homes. These team members will also then be collecting data, actually understanding the GHG emission reductions that they were responsible for, and ultimately building it into a larger project by the end of this year. They also have sort of a sub-team within that 4-member team who has an additional project working with local businesses doing a similar type of project. And so that's a great example where it's a team of 4 all working together, all sitting in the same office, but they each have their own responsibilities. And there's even sub-teams within the large team. So they're getting that team networking and team atmosphere, but also individual opportunity. Now, the 5th member who is working in that same region, the Inland Empire region, is actually on her own over in the cities of Fontana and the city of Redlands. And she is actually completing, working on actually developing climate action plans, and then after they are developed and passed, she will be working on implementing them. And so that's another case where she gets together on a regular basis, about weekly with the rest of the team. She's involved with some other side projects. She assists them whenever possible, but ultimately she's working out of another office and really sort of has ownership of her own project. So members for the 2015-16 service year will have an opportunity for either of those types of methods of working on projects, and it really depends on the members' skill sets and their interests and the needs of the local governments as to what type of project you might be working on. Each region has a supervisor who will work with the members on their projects, as well as provide general staff support. And of course, each member is also supported by project contacts, those local governments that you're working with, and the state staff. I mentioned earlier that members spend a total of 1,700 hours over approximately 11 months with Civic Spark. Our next term will start October 19th, and all 48 members start then at the same time. We have about a week-long, week-and-a-half-long orientation, and then you start on your projects. And then the service year will go through mid-September 2016. During that time, members will split their time between service, their actual climate change response project, and training, that professional development side of things. Quickly wanted to go over qualifications to help you understand if this might be a good fit for you. To start with, we do look for people who do have a 4-year degree in an environmentally related field, and ideally 1 year of experience. This 1 year of experience doesn't need to be a year outside of college. It might be, let's say, internships or campus experience that you've gained on campus. We do ask people to have an experience with California climate change policies and practices. And I will say each year we probably have about a quarter of our members do come from outside of California, and we do offer training specifically into California policies and practices, but it's always good to at least have some knowledge coming into the program. We definitely look for people who have experience with local governments, whether or not, again, this is working with an internship or maybe having a specific class that you took that helped a local government in one way or another. We're really looking for people who understand what it's like to work with a local government and what that process could look like. Good communication and teamwork skills, some experience in outreach is always preferred, and then comfortable with quantitative work, including data collection and analysis. Looking at member benefits, all AmeriCorps programs have the same specific benefits over the year. Although in general our programs are the same benefits, each have small differences. So I did just want to run through these really quickly. We do, to start with, have a $14,000 stipend, and this is spread evenly throughout the 11 months. An education award that this coming year will be $5,775. The award is given at the completion of your 1,700 hours and can be used to pay off existing student loans or to go back to school. This, just pausing really quickly, this is something that I really encourage anyone who might be looking at going back to school to strongly consider. The approximately, a little bit under $6,000 can be used to pay off existing student loans, but if you are interested in gaining a master's degree or an additional degree, a lot of schools will match this education award. So instead of that approximate $6,000, you have closer to $12,000 to use to go back to school. We do provide health insurance, child care if necessary, and forbearance on existing qualifying student loans. If you do put your loans in forbearance, the interest that's accrued during the service year will be repaid at the end of the year. There have been quotes I mentioned earlier throughout this entire presentation from our current Civic Spark members, as well as one or two from other people, but I also wanted to share with you a few more. One specifically from Olivia Hara. Olivia is a member serving in the Sierra Nevada team with 2 other team members this year. She started the service year helping to finalize and submit energy action plans for 7 communities in the Sierra region. Her other team members have continued working on the same project and working with these same communities, and currently they're working with them on energy savings and tracking GHG inventories. Olivia's work, though, shifted to the Sierra's Climate Adaptation Mitigation Partnership, or CAMP. This is really bringing agencies across the region together to make a more resilient community through not only climate change mitigation and mainly adaptation strategies. So just quoting Olivia, so far the opportunity that Civic Spark has provided in networking and developing professional skills has been invaluable. The experience of volunteering in our communities, sharpening our knowledge and skills in our fields, and creating professional connections, all while leveraging our passions for proactive change in our communities, has proven an advantage experience. One other one from Chelsea Manfredi. She serves in our LA region with 6 other team members, and she's working specifically with the Southern California Association of Governments, also known as SCAG. It's a regional planning agency that represents 6 counties of Southern California. And with these 2 other team members, Chelsea is working on the Green Region Initiative Sustainability Indicators Project. And they've been working thus far really to create a database of all of the sustainability initiatives being implemented in about 190 cities in 6 counties throughout the SCAG region. Next, they're going to look through that database and identify best practices, and ultimately all of this information will be put to use to create educational webinars and workshops at SCAG. And the idea behind this project is that there, out of these 190 or so cities, there's a lot of people who want to take action and need to take action, but don't know the next step to take. So this is going to be a project to really sort of help them take that next step and move forward in climate action response. So looking at Chelsea's quote, there's a saying that you should always be the dumbest person in the room. The Civic Spark project gives you so many opportunities to be the dumbest person in the room, yet simultaneously be recognized as deserving your seat at the table. Depending on your project, you may or may not immediately see the fruits of your labor, but you will be making significant contributions to improve your community. And as we get California on track towards its climate change goals, you will know that you helped to make that happen. So really quickly, I wanted to review the member recruitment process. Before I dive into that, though, I wanted to touch on whether or not Civic Spark is right for me. And really, I wanted to touch on this because Civic Spark is not your typical AmeriCorps programs in a lot of ways, and we want to make this clear from the beginning. Civic Spark is an opportunity to get hands-on experience doing sustainability work at the local government level. Members will have the opportunity to learn a lot and to see what it's like to work within the field. You'll get access to better training and higher level work than most people would in just an entry level job. And you'll be also able to make a lot of great connections. But with that said, ultimately, in a lot of ways, this is sort of an office job. Work oftentimes takes place inside, behind a computer with communication and engagement through phone and email, not out in the field or with a great touch with community members. Now, we do have some positions each year that do have an outreach focus. For example, this year we have a member in San Diego working on an iCommute program. And for the past 6 months, he's been conducting outreach and an education campaign to let residents know about the benefits and the opportunities for alternative transportation. This has been a very high intensive outreach, and he's done anything from walk door to door to present at different community meetings, to do different tabling at events and whatnot. But even with this very high sort of community touch, he did also have to do a lot of prep work. And we also have members who might be leading, let's say, office green teams or working with business owners. But all of these positions are going to also have some time that's been doing that prep work, creating the marketing documents, building outreach plans, and ultimately behind a computer. Civic Spark offers a great way to take your first step into the sustainability field or to gain different experience within climate change response, but we did want to make that expectation clear. So lastly, looking at the member recruitment process, our goal is to have all of our 2015-16 projects defined as we're in the interview process, so we can share specific information about projects that you could possibly work with as we're interviewing people. We'll be working ultimately to link the skills, experience, and desires of candidates with the projects that best fit them. With that said, we don't always know all projects, and some projects, as I mentioned earlier, some members work on multiple projects during the year. So being flexible and maybe having an idea of a few different types of projects that you'd like to work on is very helpful for us. Looking sort of just timing-wise, we will be opening the application in late June, early July, and we'll start the interview process immediately. Selected candidates will go through the interview process first with State Civic Spark staff. That'll be stage one, and typically it is a two-step stage. So an initial phone interview, that'll be a quick interview. Usually those only take about 20 minutes or so. If passed on, that you'll go to a second phone interview again with Civic Spark statewide staff, myself or someone like me, and we would take that time to get to know you a little bit better, get to understand what your interests are so that we can best match you with the project that we think that you are. Also during this time, we'll be asking for you to really help us understand which regions you would best want to be placed in so that we can really sort of send your information out to the correct people. Applicants will really have a chance to also let us know what works and what doesn't work. In a case that, let's say, you were made an offer in San Diego region and decided that that might not be the perfect region for you, you could decline that offer without actually taking yourself away from or excluding yourself from the interview process in other regions as well. So we really do want you to be involved in the process and to help us understand where you could be a good fit. And then members will be selected ultimately based on the projects. And so this does mean that after that second phone interview with LGC, we'll be referring you to the regional supervisors and coordinators, possibly the local governments who are looking for this help. You'll have that opportunity really to touch base at a local level to understand more about the project. As I mentioned earlier, orientation will start October 19th and projects will start early November. I'm going to go ahead and end there. Any questions that I can answer that came up throughout the presentation, I will just sort of as a basic follow-up, I will be sending out the both, I guess, a recording of this and the slides from this webinar to each of you so that you do have this information. You have my contact information on the screen right now, and most of you probably have received an email or seen my information in the past. So definitely, if you have any questions that were not addressed on the webinar today, I'm happy to answer anything as we move forward. I mentioned again earlier, we will be opening our application process in about June, and each of you will also, as long as you have entered your information on our website, so I definitely suggest you do take time to go to civicspark.lgc.org. There is a join form there where you can just enter your information, and when we do open the application process, an email will be sent to you. That way you can be notified that the application is available and we will be starting the interview process. I don't see any immediate questions, so I will go ahead and end this now. And again, if any questions come up after the fact, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer anything, and thank you for your time and your attention today. Have a wonderful day.